Right, members, we've got a quorum already, so may I now call the meeting to order. So please invite the officials and the EOC representative in. First of all, members, please confirm the minutes of the last meeting. Can we confirm the minutes, please? Thank you. Next, findings of the study on equal learning opportunities for students with disabilities under the integrated education system. I welcome the administration's team as well as the representative from the EOC. At the end of last year, the EOC released the findings of the study on equal learning opportunities for students with disabilities under the IE system. In fact, we haven't seen a large-scale study on this topic for quite some time. In fact, towards the end of the last term of LegCo, the administration gave us a paper to review the progress of the implementation of the IE system in Hong Kong. In fact, that paper has been annexed to today's paper, but I think that paper merely describes the present situation. It's not a review of a qualitative or quantitative nature, and so I think the EOC's report is very important. So can I now invite Dr. Chiu from the EOC to introduce the findings of the study to us, and then we'll invite the administration to respond. Yes, thank you, Chairman. I believe members have already got the EOC's report and submission, so I'm not going to read out everything again. I just want to highlight our observations. Now, we carried out or commissioned the study because the IE pilot scheme started over a decade ago, and we've heard complaints from principals, from teachers, and from parents concerning lack of resources, inadequate training for teachers, and the lack of a conducive school environment to implement IE. In other words, parties concerned felt that they were not ready for IE, and so we carried out a questionnaire survey, and we also organized focus groups to seek the views of the stakeholders. And in fact, the comments we've received are not surprising. Based on the findings of the study, we can see where the problem lies. The main problem is that there isn't that right mindset in schools for the implementation of IE. According to the stakeholders, there is a lack of the right culture or mindset in schools because of problems with the system, because everybody is talking about effective use of resources, efficiency, closing of schools, and also a shrinking of class size. In fact, I attended a seminar of the Special Education Council some time ago, and at that seminar, these issues were discussed. So the emphasis is on streaming and as well as effective and efficient teaching. Yes, we all understand that resources are limited, and streaming may bring about better effectiveness and efficiency. But IE is about putting mainstream school students and students with learning difficulties in the same learning environment. They have to learn together. So to implement IE, there must be adequate support measures and there must be the right mindset. According to the study, principals and teachers are concerned about difficulties associated with the teaching of students with attention deficit and hyperactivity disorders, as well as autistic spectrum disorders. So this is the efficiency consideration, and this consideration overrides the integration consideration. So how can we match the two? This is difficult, I must admit. I think different stakeholders should sit together to voice their difficulties and to together find the way forward. I think such a forum for exchange of views is extremely important. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Chiu. And now I would like to invite the administration to respond. Mr. Yuan, please, Under Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. In fact, we've prepared a response to the EOC's report. All in all, we welcome the study commissioned by the EOC on IE. In fact, we've studied the results of the questionnaire survey. In fact, most of the recommendations in the report are the directions that the Education Bureau and the schools are pursuing. So I think the study report affirms the measures that we have been adopting, and we will of course continue to promote and implement IE based on the recommendations in the study. I think in order that IE can succeed, we need to have teachers, parents, and the entire community pitching in, and also there is a need for the right mindset in the community. And then the social welfare sector, the medical sector, as well as the NGOs also have a very important part to play. And we'll continue to promote IE in the days to come. Now, I think the Education Bureau has done quite a good job in this regard. Let me explain. Principals and teachers have said that they have implemented IE upon the request of the Education Bureau. In other words, we've already made the first step. The Education Bureau has made use of administrative means to request schools to implement IE. The principals, the teachers, and the students are beginning to accept the concept of IE, and they are also trying to bring about improvements to the situation. And I believe there will be further improvements to the IE system in the future. Thank you. I'll pause here. Thank you very much. I think the EOC has put forward very specific recommendations. I believe members have already received the EOC's submission. We want to see concrete follow-up action to these recommendations. The Education Bureau has provided very detailed responses to the EOC's recommendations. Yet, concerning individual learning plans for each and every SEN students, and also the creation of the post of special education coordinator, and also how to enhance principals' knowledge in IE, for example, the education's response is just that more guides or codes will be formulated for the reference of principals and teachers. I don't know whether members have got any questions for the administration. Today we have ample time for discussion. I'll initially give each member 5 minutes, but I'll be relaxed as far as control of time is concerned. Yes, Professor Kenneth Chen. Yes, I really would like to thank the UC for its report. I think there is a need to stimulate more interest and concern in society about IE. Now we have this subcommittee under the panel on education on IE. I think the work of the UC and the work of the subcommittee can help to change the mindset in society. Now, there are many aspects in IE, and so perhaps I'll start with the concerns of teacher groups and parent groups. The CE has said in the policy address that there will be an allocation of $1.5 million and $10 million will be used to upgrade the school environment of special schools. The parents are of the view that, of course, there is a need for better hardware, but then there is also a need for better software. In fact, parents, teachers, and students do agree that money is important for the implementation of IE, but money can't solve all the problems. Now the first step is assessment. Is it that the number is stands merely at 20,000? We want to know how much more resource we need to enhance assessment. And then we can proceed to talk about hardware, software, the school environment, the classroom setting, as well as the mindset in society. And so I'll start with this question. There isn't adequate support with regard to the service of educational psychologists. The waiting time is, or the queuing time is always long. And some are of the view that the assessment is not detailed enough. The assessment is too simple. So can this assessment be done in a more detailed manner? Since the mindset, the right mindset is important, the school environment is important, but I think we need to find out the target groups of IE. So can I ask the UC and the Bureau to respond?
Okay. I've noted that in the study from the EOC, they pointed out that the assessment has been criticized as being too casual and simple, and it was not comprehensive enough. Dr. Chiu, can you explain more? Actually, as we have said, the report was put together by doing two different approaches. One is the quantitative approach. The conclusions were made based on the discussions of focus groups. Some parents have told the interviewers that the assessment will only take 30 minutes and no detailed reports would be given to them. We admit this is just a kind of hearsay. We have limited resources, and we do not have a big budget for the team, so we were not able to go deeper to provide further information. Mr. Young, anything to add? Thank you, Chairman. Actually, we support that assessment for students with SEN should be done as soon as possible. Between the time they are born until they are 5 years old, at mother and child health care centers, assessments would be carried out. When the child enters primary school, in the public system, there will be a primary 1 student learning questionnaire and assessment form. And this would cover all the students. We may be able to identify students who require further assessment, which will be carried out by specialists. We see that the EOC has said that the assessment procedure may be too simple. There's a lack of details. We remain open-minded. This is a professional assessment. If there are insufficiencies, we will discuss with professional bodies to see how we can enhance things at the professional level. I believe that can be done. But we need to see how this assessment is not comprehensive enough. Mrs. Ip, Chairman, concerning this report issued by the EOC, we had a meeting with the Department of Health and the doctors who were responsible for assessment. They informed us that each assessment would take a very long time. Each assessment report would list out in details how the child may need follow-up or what problems there may be. Normally, the report will be handed over to the schools to follow up. The school will see how they can provide assistance. There will be information given to the parents because this is a professional assessment. They will provide part of the texts that would be easily understandable to the parents, while a more detailed version will be sent to the government or DFH. The doctor said that it is not a practice that can be done in 15 minutes. And there are professional requirements and information will have to be recorded. Because we need to provide support to the schools. The schools have never said that the information is insufficient for them to follow up. And we also talked about school-based psychologists. We understand the concern. Right now, the number of educational psychologists is not yet at a satisfactory level. Because, as you know, every year, only a very small number of graduates will join this industry. This year, 530 public schools will enjoy such services from these specialists. By 2016-17, hopefully there will be enough graduates. It is not that we don't want to spend the money to open the spaces in universities, but by 2016-17, hopefully we'll have enough number of psychologists, and the ratio to students will be very close to the world average. Mr. Chen, are there other members waiting to speak? Yes, Vice Chairman. Chairman, sorry, my voice is not well today. When it comes to the whole issue of IE, as Dr. Chiu has pointed out, it is a problem with the system. If we need cultural change to support it, yes, that's the ideal situation, but our culture is not going to suddenly change. So sometimes we have to do something with the system and actual practice, and then eventually promote cultural change. In this process, I think it is important for the government to be the advocator. Very often, we will place the focus on the schools. Perhaps you're not hearing me clearly. Sometimes we look at the issue at the school level. Do the teachers have the capability or the attitude to carry out IE? But actually, when we promote this policy in relevant departments in the government, do you have this vision or the capability or a foundation to promote this? When you carried out the study, I wonder if you have actually looked into the situation. Can you share your thoughts with us? We can also assess that during the promotion of IE, the colleagues in the Education Bureau, would they feel that this is very hard work? Do you need some support in terms of resources? I think this is a very concrete issue. Mr. Yeo, I will invite Mrs. Ip to supplement in a moment. I would like to say that yes, it is very hard work. To the schools, to the Education Bureau colleagues, because we are promoting IE, and this is not an easy process. As I've said at the beginning, when we carried out the study, we saw that teachers and principals of more than half of the schools saying that they carry out IE because the government requires them to do so. So the government needs to take the first step. We have to play our role. We want to promote and implement this policy, and we have to push ahead with it. But the process is very difficult, and our colleagues from the EB spend a lot of time on planning the implementation, how to provide support to schools, how to do it step by step. As we mentioned in our paper in 2006-07 and then 07-08, we continued to perfect the system to provide support to the schools. I'm not saying that we are doing it well. We still have room for improvement. But if you look back into the past decade, we started from zero IE, and today most schools accept this concept. The process was not easy. We will continue to fight for resources, but we have to look at the overall education system. We have to find a balance. So we welcome the subcommittee discussion so that we can have a more focused discussion on the direction of IE and see how we can further improve the process. Mrs. Ip? Thank you, Chairman. I strongly agree that when we implement IE, we need to focus on the software as well. I want to thank the members for showing your concern on the workload of EB colleagues. We have to look at the teachers' attitude, their knowledge and capability. We have to work harder. When it comes to training, we have mentioned in the paper that we have completed the first 5 years training. And there seems to be more primary school teachers receiving the training. We have looked into the situation and considered why this is the case. We have commissioned tertiary education institutions to carry out the training. And the study collided with the implementation of the new secondary school system. So many teachers also needed to attend training for that area. And after the restructuring of the education system, the first HKCE results are now available. So we want to tie in our work with the schedules of the schools so that school teachers can find the time to attend IE training. For example, in which months it will be easier to release more teachers to attend the training. You would agree and understand that after the training sessions, the teachers still face challenges in facing the students in a classroom. So we would provide some professional support. We have the SE section staff visiting schools. They can also host case conferences with the parents to see how we can provide support to individual students. At the same time, we provide professional assistance to different teachers and also language therapists, educational psychologists, and other supporting staff. So we can identify a number of schools with more advanced IE implementation or special schools with expertise in taking care of students with SENs. There are 25 such schools who can provide sharing sessions to help teachers. We will not underestimate the needs for professional assistance. Our colleagues have gone abroad to invite experts in SEN to come have sharing sessions with us. I'm also glad to share with you that there are some university lecturers who have been working with us very closely to take care of students with ADHD, intellectual disabilities, so on and so forth. We also work with NGOs and voluntary groups to host classes and activities to take care of autistic students. We also have collaboration involving different sectors. There are also some seminars hosted by medical doctors. Sometimes we may need some input from medical professionals for some of our students. We also welcome the AOC's report stating that we need to do something about our culture. We agree with that, and we will step up our work in this front. When it comes to promotion, we do not just target students with SENs or their parents or teachers, but rather for able-bodied students, their groups, their parents, and other people should also have this attitude to embrace differences, to promote harmony in the classrooms.
Thank you. I think you can queue up again if you wish to follow up. Ms. Helena Wong. Yes, I thank the EOC for the report. we need to promote the concept of equal learning opportunities. But of course, different students have different learning abilities. So on the one hand, we need to stress equal learning opportunities. On the other hand, we need to respect the differences in learning abilities among different students. Now, as we're putting students of learning difficulties in mainstream schools, how can there be integration? How can we respect equal learning opportunities and learning differences or differences in learning abilities at the same time? I'm sure in different countries there are different modes of IE. I want to know which mode we are adopting in Hong Kong. Now, when you place SEN students in mainstream schools, what is your policy at P1 level and at S1 level? Do you do it randomly, or is it that parents apply to schools that they like? So what I'd like to know is the distribution of SEN students among the mainstream schools. And for the students in SEN students in a mainstream school, is it that they are placed in different classes, or is it that their distribution among different classes is at random? And then is it that special attention is given to these students to help them overcome their learning difficulties, or is it that there is no assistance at all to these children? Mr. Yang, in Hong Kong, we practice a dual track system. For the more severe cases or students of multiple problems, then after professional assessment and with the consent of their parents, they are placed in special schools so that special care can be given to them. But then for those of minor problems, then they can be placed in mainstream schools. Concerning place allocation, they are treated in the same way that other students are treated. Then when these SEN students are or have been allocated to a certain school, will inform the school of the preparation work they need to do. For example, the student may have hearing impairment, visual impairment, and so on and so forth. So the school has to make the necessary preparation. Concerning which class the student should be put in, we leave this to the school to decide. In some cases, it's better to put all the SEN students in the same class. In other cases, it may be better to put them in different classes. So it's for the school to decide. The school takes into account the strengths and weaknesses of the students, the character of the students, and then the school exercises its professional judgment in placing the students with SEN in various classes. Of course, for students of visual impairment or hearing impairment, we need to make sure that schools can provide assistance to them. But then for those of learning difficulties, teachers will be able to help them. Now, in fact, in in a class in a mainstream school. Even for non-SEN students, there are some who are academically stronger, some academically weaker. So we've got this 3-tier system. But there are some students who can attend classes together with the other students, and then for others whose speed need special care, they can be placed in small groups, or they can receive after-school remedial teaching. And for students with stronger or with really special needs, special educational needs, they may even be put under a one-to-one learning mode. Ms. Wong, is it that your follow-up question is a short one? So it seems that there is no policy at all. So there aren't any special arrangements under the school place allocation system. So the school is informed if these students are allocated to the school, and then the principal can decide which class or which classes these students should be placed in. And then as for the school to decide which of the 3 tiers the students belong to. So it seems that you are leaving everything to the schools. Chairman, the concept is integrated education, and so we'll not have preconceived ideas as to where a particular student with SEN should go. So these students are allocated to mainstream schools, and then the school is informed of the need to provide the assistance or care that the students need. Now, in order to provide the best help to the student, you have to understand that student. So it's quite impossible for the Education Bureau to teach the schools how to take care of each and every student, because the school and the teachers know the needs of those students best. And so I think it's for the schools, the principals, and the teachers to decide how best to help these students. Mrs. Ip? Yes, thank you, Chairman. Now, if it's a known case, in other words, if the student has been assessed to be an SEN student, then the expert's report will have been forwarded to the school. For example, the conditions of the student and what assistance and care the student needs. And we also send our professional colleagues to pay school visits. And then if the student is allocated to another school, then we'll ask the parent to authorize the previous school to pass on information about the student to the new school, including the progress of learning of the student, what learning support the student needs, and what special arrangements there should be in terms of assignments and so on and so forth. And so if the student is allocated, or if a student goes to a new school, there is no need for the new school to start observing the student all over again in order to provide the best support to the student. In fact, our colleagues, especially educational psychologists, visit these schools and they look at the progress of these students, and they have meetings with the student support groups. Ms. Sit-ho. Thank you. Now, we've got students of different special education needs. Now, for example, some students have physical disabilities, some have visual or hearing impairments. And it seems that schools tend to welcome them more. This is because with the necessary resources, with the necessary facilities, then it's not too difficult to help these students in integrated education. But then schools may have difficulties handling students with emotional problems like hyperactivity disorders. Now, I have a friend, and the chairman knows him too. The friend is an educational psychologist and counselor, and according to him, the teacher, that sometimes teachers also had emotional problems, and in some cases, the teachers and the students fought. Now, no, the teacher has to maintain order in the classroom, and the teacher has to teach, and yet there may be a hyperactive student in the classroom carrying out all sorts of activities, and if he is in fact a talented or gifted child, then there may even be more problems for the teacher because he knows everything. According to the Undersecretary, there is a 3-tier system for students in these schools. In some cases, small group teaching and even one-to-one teaching is provided for students with such needs. But how many schools can afford one-to-one teaching? Now, Chairman, you and I have been to one school. They don't want the school to be closed, and as a result, they just want to recruit as many students as possible, and they are willing to receive these students, and there are many students of different types of special educational needs, and yet there aren't enough teachers. The school environment is really not the right one. So how can that school, for example, provide the right care to the different students of different educational, special educational needs? The EOC mentions IEP, individual education plans. Out of the students with SEN, how many of them at the moment have IEPs for them? Do you have the resources to provide IEPs to all students with SENs? And then for students with emotional disorders, you may not be able to detect such disorders initially. Now, of course, the ideal situation would be that all students should have IEPs, but I understand that's not the case. So when students are later detected to have emotional disorders, then how can the schools deal with such cases? Yes, I'll try to give an answer because I think the scope of the question is very wide. I mentioned the 3 tiers. In principle, for students admitted to IE schools, we expect them to be able to learn together with the other students. In other words, we assume that they should be in tier 1, but then of course teachers need to observe these students to see whether they can really learn effectively. But if teachers discover that these students have special learning difficulties and may not be able to learn effectively in a normal classroom setting, then maybe small group teaching is provided for these students for, say, a few months, and it is hoped that through small group teaching, these students can catch up, and then they can one day return to the normal classroom setting for learning. But of course, we can't segregate them forever, or else that will not be regarded as integrated education. But then if these students can't benefit from small group teaching, then one-to-one or one learning or teaching may have to be provided. And concerning IEP, usually we do provide IEPs for Tier 3 students, but we do not really provide IEPs for Tier 1 and Tier 2 students. As Ms. Ho has pointed out, in theory, in fact, everybody has some kind of emotional disorder. So it's very difficult to have IEPs for all such students. But then for Tier 3 students, usually they are given IEPs.
Ms. Young, perhaps you can give us the exact figures. In the 3 tiers, how many students are involved? Perhaps I can provide them after the meeting. You don't know? How many students have IEP? We don't have the figures right here. Mr. Ho also asked about how many students would enjoy one-on-one services. How many cases? At the 3rd tier, in the system, each student will enjoy additional subsidy of 20,000. I will provide the exact figures afterwards. For one-on-one services, other than the subsidy for learning needs, we will provide additional grants to schools to hire extra help. For example, sometimes we need to take the student away from class. Perhaps the school will need to hire someone for a few months. We will provide the resources. And that will be one-on-one special care. Ms. Ho also mentioned some emotional or behavioral problems or differences. For example, autism, hyperactivity, cases that were not identified at an earlier stage. We would rely on the teachers. Do they see any students who may fall within these groups? Students with these obstacles, what would they show? And then we also need to rely on the parents. Do they see such problems with their children at home? They can inform the schools, or the schools can also talk to the parents if they see anything unusual. And then the parents will have to agree to an assessment. Perhaps by medical doctors or educational psychologists. They may have to go to a hospital to do the assessment. Hopefully this can be done as soon as possible. Right now we have a better coverage by educational psychologists, so the service can be obtained quite quickly, while the waiting time may be longer if this child has to go to a hospital. We want to provide suitable training sessions or activities to the students with special needs. If it is hyperactivity or autism, we can work with some voluntary groups. Perhaps there could be some training courses after school to target their behavioral problems. We can arrange the students to take these classes. And after the assessment and the report, the special needs of the student will be listed out and how we can provide special care. And we will make necessary arrangements. So, Chairman, we would like to have early identification and early support to be given. If there is suspicion of special needs, the school can provide some special care. Perhaps you can provide the figures after the meeting and also the figure on one-on-one special care. Well, some information has been provided to me just now. In this academic year, at Tier 3, total number was 1,470, combining primary and secondary schools. One-on-one? No. Tier 3. Tier 3 IEP. Each student will get 20,000 subsidy. They will have IEP services. But Chairman, if you allow me to follow up, well, you have no time left. Perhaps you can join the second round? Just on this point, Mrs. Zhang said, Mrs. Ip, it should be Mrs. Ip. I'm sorry. Maybe I should just call you Betty. Every student will have 20,000. Does that mean the 20,000 will actually be spent on the child? That is very important, but I think we need follow-up. There are other members waiting. You're running over time. Chairman, I'm raising this point because I want to tell the Policy Bureau I'm not happy with their reply given just now. There are some money given on an additional basis that is not spent on the child. So 1,400 odd students, they will get 20,000 each if they are all eligible for the amount. What kind of treatment are they getting in the schools? We will need to follow up. This is an important issue. Many parents are very concerned. For Tier 3, for the first 6 students, we will give them 120,000 in one go, because we understand that more support is needed for Tier 3. And these students are located in different schools. And the 20,000, we hope that the schools will combine all the resources under different schemes to provide suitable counseling or support. Finally, we talked about teachers. We understand that teachers are working very hard. In some cases, inside the classrooms, they have a lot of tough work to face. So first of all, we would provide training courses to the teachers so that they know how to deal with students with special needs. And we also encourage whole school participation, so they won't think that, oh, you are so unlucky, you have 2 students with SENs in your class and it is on your shoulders only. There will be dedicated personnel in each school to provide more support to teachers. Last one in the first round, Mr. Abraham Sheikh. Well, our very loving officials have briefed us on this program. It is a nice way to start a new year. Please don't look at me. I'm saying nice things about you. Criticism has not started yet. Chairman, I strongly support this concept, but it seems to be a very rosy picture. We are faced with a group of unfortunate students. They have some sort of insufficiencies which are inborn to them. when we talk about this in this room, we all applaud the effort, but how much help are we really giving them to create this fair learning environment? So by launching this program, this is a new concept, but at the same time it is not a new concept. Special education evolving into integrated education. We're talking about a very long journey. I do not doubt your intention. You have written so many nice things. They all sound very good. But when it comes to implementation of this concept and this policy, how many people do you have to support this 3-tier structure? Secondly, how much resources do you have? Ms. Ho asked an excellent question. Will the money follow the people? Or will the money go into the system and be trapped in the system? I went to this ESF school called South Island School. They also have integrated education system. There are 3 teachers for every class. And there were 4 students with SENs. So 2 teachers would be teaching other students. So in the classroom, there's no peer group discrimination. Training up a teacher is not so simple. You don't just provide him with information. The teacher must have special education background. And at the same time, it has to be someone who has the dedication and love. And students, they come in very different forms. Some of them are very naughty. Sometimes there would be peer group pressure and discrimination. So how do you make arrangements to support this wonderful concept? Chairman, we cannot just have a meeting about this. So many people would be affected. Some children are born with some issues. We shouldn't just have this meeting inside this room. We have to go to the schools to have a look. If it is a successful case, we have to commend them. But for the less successful cases, we should not assume they will become successful. And those students will lose their opportunity in their lives because we have not done all that we can. If the cases are not successful, what can we do inside LegCo in this very restricted environment? Push the government to do better. This is a great concept. This is a very rosy picture. But I think we need to give justice, bring justice to the students. We need to go beyond this subcommittee. 1,470 students at the 3rd tier. How do you use the resources? What about the other 2 tiers? We need the answers, not for us, but for the students, so that they have this fair environment. Do you need reply from the government? No, I support the scheme. I'm glad that because of your suggestion, this subcommittee should go to the reality level to observe and communicate with the stakeholders. Government officials and the EOC are here, and we have some initial discussion about the report. We will have some hearing sessions. We will invite the students and their parents to come talk to us. We can also make visits to the schools directly. I think that will be the best arrangement so that we'll be in the real situation.
So when we discuss the items for discussion at the next meeting, we may want to suggest that we pay visits to the schools. In fact, I made the same request before the Lunar New Year holidays at the education panel. So I hope that the Undersecretary can make the necessary arrangements so that we can know firsthand the progress that has been made, and we can also give suggestions for improvement. Mr. Young, I believe you try to make the necessary arrangements, right? Yes, I just want to very briefly respond to a very important point made by Mr. Abraham Sheck. We're not here trying to paint a rosy picture before members. Now, the ideal or the ultimate goal is full integration. I want to say that we've already made the first step. This is we haven't really achieved the final goal. We do understand that there are problems. We've received a lot of feedback in the various focus groups. So we're not being complacent. We're not saying that everything is okay, everything is perfect. We have certain objectives in implementing IE, and we are working towards these objectives. And of course, we can also try to identify areas for improvement. All right, so after we've finished discussing this study, then we can work out the details of the proposed visit. In the year 2011-2012, 28,600 students were assessed to be SEN students. And about 5% are classified as Tier 3 students, about 1,400 odd. And I want to say that this figure of 28,600 is lagging behind by 1 year. So it doesn't mean that it's really fantastic to have 1,400 students with IEPs. In fact, 95% of SEN students do not have individual education plans. So is the figure that I've quoted correct? Yes, Chairman, you are correct. In the year 2011-2012, 1,485 students needed Tier 3 support. Tier 3 students each has an IEP. But in fact, for all SEN students, we do require schools to keep learning records about these students, although these students do not have IEPs. Such information is useful when students are promoted to a higher grade, or when students go to secondary school. When the latter happens, we will ask parents to authorize the former school to pass on the information to the new school. So although these students do not have IEPs, schools do keep records about their learning progress. We're not talking about a small number. We have about 6,000 students studying in special schools. So altogether, we're talking about over 30,000 SEN students in Hong Kong. And we're talking about an issue which affects over 30,000 families. Now, IE has been implemented since the reunification. I think we all support the concept of IE. We do not want discrimination. Integration is a universal value. We want to see integrated education, but then do we really have all the right elements and conditions in our system? Are we able to teach students in accordance with their different abilities? In fact, streaming and teaching according to students' abilities can increase the effectiveness and efficiency of teaching and learning. We have many of SEN students being placed in mainstream schools, but is sufficient streaming being done at the moment? Many people, like Mr. Abraham Sheikh, are of the view that IE is an excellent concept, but in actual implementation, there are many problems. In fact, some parents suffer from depression or mental disturbance because of the problems that their children face in an IE setting. I understand that in a quantitative survey, over 5,000 people have been interviewed, and in the qualitative survey, over 400 stakeholders have been interviewed. Their views are important. And then the assessment of students has been criticized as too sloppy and too simple. The assessment reports have been regarded as not comprehensive enough. And then training for teachers, at the moment they only receive 30 hours or 60 hours training, but then teachers have to face students with different learning problems or educational needs. Yes, there are 8 main categories, but some students do have multiple learning problems. And according to the report, the awareness of principles is not enough. Yes, we understand that the Education Bureau has put forward indexes, guidelines, and in fact, I have read the indices. They are based on the indices used in the UK, but we know from the study that about half of the teachers are not aware of the existence of the indices. So we can't help asking ourselves how many schools are in fact following these codes and indexes. I understand that time's up for my round. So after today's discussion, we're going to pay visits to schools, and we'll also be meeting parents, teachers, and other stakeholders, and they will tell us about the problems that they face. Some students do have multiple disorders and problems. Can we also invite the Institute of Education to attend that hearing? Do they provide sub-degree courses or degree courses on special education? In overseas countries, special education is an undergraduate discipline. It's a 1-year course. The training is much more than 30 hours. And in overseas countries, these teachers get enhanced pay. In fact, I think our teachers work very hard. I think our teachers are not well paid, and I think all teachers should be paid more. You know, people nowadays are reluctant to be teachers because the salary is not enough for them to make ends meet. So let's ask the Institute of Education to come. Let's ask them whether they do offer programs on special education, so that those who are interested in pursuing a career in special education can study or can pursue this course. Yes, the Institute of Education has a Center for Special Education Needs. This is the Center for Special Educational Needs and Inclusive Education. So the institute does provide such courses, and Hong Kong UNCU do carry out studies on special education. And in Hong Kong U, there is also a center on special education. I'm not talking about centers. I'm talking about training for prospective teachers in special education. Now, for example, are there dip ed courses on special education? Yes, but very few people are interested because of poor career prospects. And there is a small demand for teachers with special education qualifications. There is a huge demand for teachers teaching certain subjects, and so. And also, when for teachers teaching in special schools, if they want to pursue a special education course, then the school can hire a supply teacher to stand in for him so that he can be released to attend the course. But understand that this arrangement has already ceased. Mrs. Ip, am I correct? I want to say that the mode of providing training for teachers of special education has changed. Previously, in one school, we might have one or two teachers responsible for special education. But then we felt that a whole school approach was preferred. In other words, all teachers in the school should be teaching students and helping students with SEN, not just one or two teachers. And this is especially the case in secondary schools when there are many subjects, especially in the senior secondary curriculum. In fact, we've asked the tertiary institutions providing teacher training, and they say that their courses do contain a module on special education. So all the students have to attend a module. And then our training courses, some of our training courses are for 30 hours, 90 hours. But then we've got a new training course, 240 hours for students, or rather for teachers teaching in IE schools. We understand that they need to teach students with various types of SENs or disorders. And I would like to thank one training institution for helping us with the provision of training, and I will not name that organization. Mrs. Ip, I want to have a paper on the training opportunities for teachers. You mean the present situation with regard to courses available for teachers? All right, I'll provide that paper. All right, let's start the second round. Mr. Chen? Chairman, I hope that the 5-minute time limit can be waived. I welcome open and free discussion on this topic. I want to say that the administration's paper merely tells us that certain things have been done, and there will be improvements, there will be enhancement measures. But I think the administration needs to ask itself what more needs to be done. I asked a question about identification and assessment. I think a good beginning is half success. So early identification is important. The assessment is done by maternity and childcare centers, as well as educational psychologists. You may feel that the assessment is comprehensive enough, and yet parents will not be able to absorb all the information. And in fact, the number increased from 17,600 to 28,600. So in fact, you have been able to identify more SEN children.
So the content is very important, so that the professional doing the assessment with the principal and teachers will have professional communication, and also communication with the parents also very important. We have come across some complaints from parents about contracting out some of the services. They may need some outside opinion, second opinion. And sometimes that will affect people's level of confidence. So when it comes to resources, training, and manpower, I just want to gather more information, more data. What are the concrete measures that will be implemented? We need to carry out a review, ask questions. How much more should be added to the plan? So that we can submit our homework. Do have the actual measures so that the software and manpower can be resolved. So the actual data and waiting time. When it comes to psychologists, we have covered 530 public schools, which is about 60% of the total number. In the coming year, we have the plan to recruit more educational psychologists. Hopefully, we'll cover 65% of the schools by 16-17. Hopefully, we'll be able to cover all the public schools, primary and secondary schools. So every psychologist will take care of 6 to 10 schools. So by 16-17, the coverage will be 100%. Each psychologist will take care of 6 to 10 schools. How did you come up with that? Actually, every year we add a number of positions. Today, we may want to have enough people to fill all the vacancies, but they are simply not available. It takes time to train these educational psychologists. 6 to 10 schools per psychologist is roughly around the average around the world. By 16-17, we will know how many new positions will be created. And then the figure will be closer and closer to the world average. Well, in advanced countries, of course, there will be some differences. One to 2,000 odd to 5,000 odd. These are just average figures. we are not yet at the ideal level, but we are moving towards that world level. So closer to 5,000 or closer to 2,000 should be the larger figure, Chairman. The number of students will vary from year to year. We just want to know about the progress in the quantity and also the quality. Perhaps we need to consider the family needs. When we do huge amount of assessment inside the Department of Health, there is this assessment center. We should not rely on the assessment carried out by educational psychologists. They go to schools, they make visits, and help the schools to see how to take care of the students. Most of them are done by the assessment centers under the DFH or the HA. Of course, some individual cases will be done by some medical specialists. For example, on learning difficulties. Okay, perhaps I did not explain it very clearly. I understand that we're talking about two groups of people, two different procedures. Perhaps they want to gather more information, they want to step up communication. As the society continues to develop, we need to explore into the situation and see how we can improve the situation. Vice Chair. Chairman, we were talking about assessment. I came across this case recently. This is a very experienced teacher teaching primary students. Recently, one of her students went out of control in class. So the teacher was crying, and the teacher was planning to resign because there was a lot of self-doubt. As Mr. Shek has said, we're looking at this rosy picture, but in reality, when we face all the students and parents, they are living beings. And we cannot incorporate everything into these papers. We have to look at our policy. Are we really helping the students? Dr. Chiu said that there was this occasion 2 to 3 weeks ago. I was also there. I also shared my thoughts. The EOC, in looking into this, adopted the equal opportunities perspective and standards to evaluate the effectiveness of IE. As an educator, I come from a different angle. I'm not saying that there is right or wrong, but perhaps we come from different backgrounds and that will affect our angles. I see it as a kind of progress. Segregated education turning into integrated education is a kind of progress in education. And inclusive education may be inclusification, developing from segregation. So at different stages, different things may happen. So when we talk about integrated education, what is our vision? Can we achieve something overnight? When we talk about culture, it's particularly true. What about accumulation of knowledge, revolution of attitudes, capabilities and resources and support? Only then we'll be able to move towards our target. Mr. Shek raised a question, which is very important. Training teachers. I have talked to some stakeholders. In the past, we have focused on training IE teachers. So we're talking about very intensive training. In the past decade of special education, we have accumulated a group of people who have experience and knowledge about different groups of students with different special needs. But this kind of training is becoming more rare in recent years. And originally, there are people in the IE area who have taken up different tasks, and we see this crisis. For people who are experienced and knowledgeable, if they disperse to other areas, this training we talk about is not using one method to replace another. With the IE as the backdrop, all the teachers should receive a certain level of comprehensive special education training before they take up their jobs, and also on-the-job training. At the same time, incumbent teachers or those going through training or experts, specialists, they can be the coordinating officers in schools, they can be the leaders in schools, and then the experts can also provide support. Thirdly, inside the EB, what is the current situation? I think the EB is the leader. And I'm a layman, so I cannot assess the current situation. But I think that when there are such great changes taking place, we may need to do some self-nurturing. I was participating in the civil servants discussion yesterday. I also talked about IE, perhaps in the Education Bureau. We should nurture more specialists. So that we can all do better our job. So at the Education Bureau level, the school level, specialists and also parents, we need to continue to accumulate experience and knowledge in order to promote IE further.
時間緊迫啦，咁
Right. Time is running out, Deputy Chairman. I think you've raised a very important issue. One aspect of management is knowledge management and the accumulation of knowledge. So within the EDB, do you have a knowledge management or expertise management strategy with regard to parents, teachers, students, and the schools? I think Mrs. Ip can answer this question. I want to respond to an important point made by the Deputy Chairman. We do need to provide training for teachers. Under the IE system, teachers may come across one or two or even more SEN students every year, and so they need the basic knowledge to help these students or to handle such students. Now, these are not very in-depth training courses. We can't require all teachers to go through in-depth training courses within a short period of time. At the moment, there is an SEN module for students in tertiary institutions studying education, and so they do possess the basic knowledge to handle students with SEN. Mrs. Ip can elaborate here. Yes, Chairman. As the Chairman and members are aware, we have a special education and kindergarten education section. On the 1st of July, when we underwent a reorganization, the unit was set up. We want to pull together expertise within the Bureau on special education and integrated education. In the past 3 or 4 years, we invited overseas experts to come to attend sharing sessions with our colleagues, and our colleagues also attended overseas conferences and seminars on IE. And in fact, there were quite a large number of such training courses and visits in the past few years. The Deputy Chairman is concerned about whether we have adequate manpower resources. I want to say that we have tried to put together our expertise, and I think it's important that our colleagues should visit the schools and talk to the support groups, and we need to talk to the schools about how the whole school approach can be enhanced. And we do need a larger establishment. This is because we have a few hundred public sector schools, and in fact visiting these schools and having discussion with teachers and principals are an extremely labor-intensive task. But it's important that there are these meetings and discussion sessions. And I agree with the Deputy Chairman in that there should be different modes of training. We need to have lectures, seminars, case conferences, and we also need to have our inspectors visiting the schools to discuss with the schools the problems that they face. And speech therapists very often accompany the inspectors during such visits. So we try to help different schools deal with their different problems. In fact, in some cases, we do invite parents to attend discussion sessions between educational psychologists and the school authorities on their children. Of course, I would hope that our team can be strengthened both in terms of quantity and quality. Yes, I wish to follow up. I support the Bureau's efforts in this regard. I think we need strategic long-term training for certain teachers. Previously, the education sector didn't know too much about students with SEN. We didn't know that there were so many types of SEN, and now we're talking about a major learning process and a major learning exercise for the entire education sector. I think we should provide systematic, long-term, strategic training for teachers, in particular leaders among the teachers. Can the Education Bureau give us a paper on the accumulation of expertise and also expertise and knowledge management within the Bureau? And also please tell us more about the reorganized structure, the establishment of your unit, what professionals there are, and also want to know the training opportunities for teachers as well as for parents. We also want to know more about accumulation of knowledge. I think we would welcome such a paper to help us understand more about the present situation. Ms. Sit Ho and then Mr. Leung Yu-chung. Thank you, Chairman. I want to first of all apologize to Mr. Kenneth Chan. We went on for too long and we didn't observe the rules, and if that made him unhappy, I apologize to him. Maybe we are hyperactive. I think 5 minutes is really not enough for questions and answers. I think Chairman, you should be more relaxed in controlling the time limit for each member. In fact, the dialogue between the Deputy Chairman and the administration went on for about 15 minutes, but I think some very important points came out of the discussion. And so as we are talking about very focused issues, and as we do not have too many members in the subcommittee, I think you should waive the 5-minute rule, Chairman. IE is about placing SEN students in mainstream schools. And so I think training should be provided to all teachers. We can't only have 10% of the teachers having received training for 30 hours, 60 hours, or 90 hours. That won't help to promote IE in Hong Kong. I think IE training is essential for all teachers and also for all prospective teachers. In other words, or in the Hong Kong IED, the students must attend modules on integrated education. And I wish to follow up on in an earlier point about the 120,000, 20,000 for each student, and even if there are only 2 students, still there will be $120,000. Yes, we know that this sum of money does appear in the school's accounts, but where does it appear? Is it that teaching assistants are hired? Is it that certain equipment has been purchased? Or is it that part-time educational psychologists or therapists or have been hired, or is it that such services have been procured on contract terms? And then concerning the 3-tier system and the one-on-one teaching group, do the schools keep records of the learning of the students? For example, how many one-on-one sessions do the students receive every week, and how long does each session last, and how long does the student have to wait if he needs treatment at the hospital level, and how long will the treatment process be, and about when can a student return to the mainstream learning environment. So we want to say have one successful case and one unsuccessful case, so that we know whether we are spending the $20,000 per student in the best way. Now, sometimes you may make available the money, but then the money is not really well spent. Now, at the subcommittee, I think in the initial stage, we'll keep on asking questions, and then we can come up with certain observations and conclusions when we've got all the information. Yes, Chairman. Schools which have received learning support grant have to provide separate accounts. For example, if a school gets $600,000, then it has to list the equipment that it has purchased and the counseling or support services it has procured. So separate accounts need to be kept for the money under the learning support grant. And every time our colleagues visit these schools, and our colleagues visit these schools at least once a year, we look at the accounts, we give comments and advice on how the money should be spent. And so such information has to be kept by the schools, but we do not really collect such information. And Chairman, as this subcommittee intends to pay visits to schools, let's choose one case so that we know how the school makes use of the learning support grant, its mindset, and how the school works out its IE policy, and how it communicates with parents, and how it implements the whole school approach. So may I suggest that we visit 1 to 2 schools. I think that would be better than my collecting such information from the schools and relaying such information to members. So should we pay a visit to the school so that we know whether the students are learning effectively, and we can also listen to the views of teachers, the principal, and students. Now, I think Betty has really worked very hard for special education. In one case, I understand that land will be made available. But then I want to say that we have asked colleagues in your bureau to take us to special schools on the 26th, next Tuesday. But it seems that they are reluctant to take us to the schools. I may not be able to assist here. Today, the discussion is about IE, and Mr. Lam Tai Fai has suggested to the Undersecretary that there should be school visits, and that's why I am making this suggestion now.
i.e., when it is implemented in schools, what are the real cases? We should go and have a look. We're talking about those with mild mental disabilities. We can go on a visit and have some on-the-spot discussions. I think we can do it through the complaints section. Mr. Leung Yu-chung. Integrated education has one major principle, and we cannot object to this principle. But when it comes to the details, there could be some problems. When we talk about IE, what type of integration are we talking about? If we're talking about students with physical disabilities, most schools would accept these students. There shouldn't be any big problems. But there could be other types of problems related to emotions and behavior. If we have integrated education, it could be very difficult. I've been teaching for 30 years. This year is my last. I used to only teach A-level students. Before that, lower grades in secondary schools. In recent years, because I'm leaving this year, I feel liberated. I say this, and I know I'm not being responsible. I am teaching SEN students other than behavior problems, and they're also learning differences in class. We talked about teacher training, but then you can only target individual students. In a class, you are not facing one child, you are facing a group of children. There could be emotional problems, behavior problems, and also learning discrepancies. How can you expect one teacher to take care of so many things? In my class, there are only 21, 23 students, and that is already too much for me. Perhaps that's because I have not gone through any special training, and I'm not good enough. The problem is, even with the training, doesn't mean that the teachers will be equipped. Sometimes they simply have no choice. When they enter the classroom, they feel helpless. They are all alone. What can they do? When I taught to one child to deal with his behavior, what about the rest of the class? Let's say there are only 21 people in the class. What will happen to the rest of the class, 20 of them? Maybe a few of them, the good ones, will do some classwork. What about the rest of the class? Who will control them? You talked about the amount of money to hire teaching assistant. They don't go into the classrooms. They do admin work only. So if something goes wrong in the class, if Chenkalog is causing trouble, I will grab him and we can go to the school psychologist. But maybe Sit-ho is causing problem as well. So I can only pay attention to one of them. Who should I choose? It's such a huge class. After I deal with Mr. Chen, I will go back to class. But it turns out that you don't know the fundamental mathematics. And then I want to teach Sit-ho inequalities. There is huge learning discrepancy. How do you teach them? If there are so many students in a class, it is simply impossible. And there's no assistant in class to help out. It's simply impossible. 20,000 or 120,000 to hire some extra help. They're not for one class, they're for all the grades. Secondary 1 to secondary 6. How do you teach all these students with different levels of learning? These are real issues. When we talk about IE and SEN, as a teacher, it's really difficult. If you know where I teach, it used to be a Band 1 famous school long time ago. And today, Band 5, Band 3, at the very bottom. I'm not ashamed. It is not about me, it's about the system. Of course, there are different factors. I'm not saying it's the fault of IE. There are many SEN students in my school. Many of them. It's simply not possible. We finish work at 6, at 7. We have so much to deal with. We don't know what to do. Support only 1 or 2 extra help. They are outside of the classrooms. We also have some help from experts, but it is also limited. This is a real problem. We are putting different things together. Today, we only talked about integrated education. We need to address the problem of learning discrepancy because it exists in every single class. I have hired people to manage students who were not paying attention in class. And that worked for a little while. But sometimes we need to further break down the second group. Perhaps that's useful. Do you want a reply from the government, Betty? Or Mr. Young? I will go first and then Mrs. Ip. Mr. Leung raised one fundamental issue. How do we take this path of IE? It's true that all 8 types have been integrated into mainstream schools. We also know that, as Mr. Leung has said, even if we don't choose to talk about SEN but just focus on learning discrepancies, because of the allocation system, there could be one discrepancy problem in each class. But when it comes to education, we want to teach according to the students' capability. We don't want to divide them into elite classes, so on and so forth. That is the fundamental education concept. So, after looking into real cases, we can address the real issues faced by the teachers in the classroom. Is it fundamental changes to the system? Do we change IE, fine-tune IE, or work on resources? I think we can have further discussion. We're very lucky. Mr. Leung is a frontline teacher. He has first-line experience of IE. We need to continue to leverage on your experience. I like the open-mindedness of Mr. Young. In the past, things were very rigid. Today, he's saying that it can be categorized. So perhaps that is a kind of progress in terms of the concept. But to be frank, just a visit is not going to be meaningful. Maybe you can teach the class for 2 days. Then you would know how painful this is. Go in and teach for 2 days, or even 2 classes. You would know. Because when some people from outside of the school arrive, the students will act very differently. But if you actually teach the class, you would know what the problems are. If you just talk to the teachers and principals, they will just tell you how difficult life is. I have this experience as a substitute teacher. It was a hyperactive child at Form 2. He pushed the child before him to the ground. So I went over to that corner, and then the students in the other corner started acting up. So what can I do? I don't have a third eye. I could hear the noise. So it was chaotic in one classroom. Some schools will stream the students according to the performance. And the situation would even be worse in the poor performing class. There could be emotional problems as well. So what can we do? So you won't know what it's like even after 2 classes. Deng Yuchong, we have heard your suggestion. Perhaps we need to make some special arrangements. It would be quite difficult for the subcommittee to arrange our members to actually teach. There's this recent case of a child punching a teacher, and the teacher got hurt. It happens. So how do you resolve it? So if you're going to provide resources, perhaps smaller groups can be created. We have very little time left. Dr. Xu? Yes, I want to talk about my own observation in our report, or according to today's discussion, we see that you are concerned about students with emotional and behavioral problems. We understand it is difficult to manage a class like that, but in the past, no special schools were there for them. So they were in Band 5, and now they're in Band 3 schools. But they were not in special schools. Special assistance of 20,000, 120,000, the schools will have to provide a detailed report on how the money is spent, because everything is hearsay. Perhaps they hire someone, and at the end, that extra help ends up in the office of the school principal to do paperwork. So there could be a discrepancy between what is presented in a paper and reality. Other than hyperactive children, we can easily identify them. There are also other children with other problems. We'll have to end today's discussion here. Let's talk about the visit. Just one thing, Chairman. We used to have vocational schools at the secondary level. We can provide some assistance to students with behavioral problems. But Betty, scrap that. Perhaps we can go back and talk about that. That is also an item on our agenda. Don't worry. Emotional and behavioral problems perhaps are greater issues or greater disruptions. But actually this assumption is very risky. In terms of education, our attention is attracted by the troublemakers, but the needy students are not getting much care. For example, those who are physically handicapped, does it mean that we do not need to handle them? Shouldn't we take care of them as well? I do see many such cases which have been neglected. When we talk about IE, these students, how do they coexist and learn together with other students? Because our attention has been distracted by some of the students. So let's not just focus on one type of student.
好，咁呢個環節討論。
Right, so we'll conclude our discussion on this item. Thank you very much, colleagues from the Education Bureau. Thank you very much, Dr. Chiu. We've got a few minutes left. Mr. Young? Now members want us to provide some information. We will provide the figures as soon as possible. And concerning the paper on training, we'll provide that when the subcommittee discusses the matter. But I think the background information is important. So we'll go on a site visit next month. So you need not give us the paper urgently. Right? Perhaps they can give us the paper together with the papers for the April meeting. All right. Right. So let's I'll exercise the chairman's power to extend the meeting for a few minutes. I would suggest that we shouldn't have a meeting in March, and instead we should visit the schools, and we should talk to the teachers, the parents, and the students directly on problems of integrated education. In fact, Mr. Lam Tai Fai said that he had asked the Education Bureau to arrange school visits. Now, I am worried that if we ask the Education Bureau to arrange the visits, then they will only show us the successful cases. Ms. Ito would also like to see some unsuccessful cases, but I believe Education Bureau would only show us the not so successful cases, not the unsuccessful cases. So I think we should take the initiative to arrange the visit. But of course, we can be accompanied by the Education Bureau. Yes, I agree, and I understand that you have you know a lot about such school networks. Perhaps you can ask the Parents Alliance which schools feel most aggrieved. Now, you know, last time I went to Leung Yu Chung School, and only Ho Kok Leung could handle the students. In fact, our principal would want to invite the Secretary for Education to visit the school to understand the difficulties there. And so if members don't mind, then you can visit our school. I'll ask the principal first. We are not a special school, but we have a lot of SEN students. And are you entitled to the $1.5 million? I don't know. I don't know whether the principal has asked for the $1.5 million. But will we also invite the officials to accompany us. Because this is going to be a electrical visit, and we need not be accompanied by government officials. Now, I think we should choose the schools ourselves. We'll not let them decide on the show flats to show us. So I think we can select the schools and we can invite them to accompany us so that they will also see what the problems are firsthand. But then, the schools may not want to reveal all their weaknesses to government officials. Perhaps we can ask the schools whether they want officials to join the visit. Also, I think we want to find out the truth. We do not want to see show flash, so that's the selection criterion. And I think before the visit, members should be given more background information. Deputy Chairman, now how many visits will we be going on? If we can have 2 visits, then I think I won't mind going to a show flat, because we can at least see what the Education Bureau intends to do in terms of integrated education. But if we can only go on 1 visit, I think the main problem is we may not have sufficient time. In fact, conducting more visits is of course a good thing, but I don't know whether members can make it, because it will not be too good if we schedule visits and cannot attend those visits. So I think we should have 1 visit first. And we do not want to see show flats during that visit. And if we have time, we can have another visit. Mr. Ho, I want to raise a question, and I don't know the answer. Now, some schools do not want to be closed, and so they are in fact recruiting a lot of SEN students for survival. Now, I will not name that primary school, but I believe you know which school I'm talking about, Chairman. Now, for that school, the school premises are very dilapidated, and it is not the first choice of most parents. And the school has taken in a lot of students not so welcome by other schools, including ethnic minority students. So I think we can visit 1 secondary school and 1 primary school, which do not have the right conditions to implement IE, but then are forced to implement IE because of their own special reasons. All right, so I will discuss the details with the Deputy Chairman, and then we'll fix a date for the visit. And I think we need to visit the schools during the school active hours, and so the visit should be in the morning, right? AOB? No? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.